Just gonna give it a second, let everybody kind of slide in, get they popcorn, get the goodies and they snacks in place. Y'all can handle y'all physical nourishment because I'm gonna bring y'all that mental goodies, the mental tender morsels to satisfy y'all. How y'all doing? Welcome to the Amby Warhol show. Another exciting episode without limitation. We gonna have some fun today because today is a free-flowing day, a simplistic day, an honest day. We don't have a lot of WandaVision to go over, so yay to that, right? We got I won't say yay to that. I'm not completely bummed out over the fact that we don't have any WandaVision, but I'm okay with the fact that we can now move into other spaces because I think I satisfied my fix of what WandaVision was offering, and so they were smart in making a decision to keep that series, shorter than a lot of series can be. So 9 episodes, that was perfect. I mean, it could have been a little bit shorter. I'm not even going to front. A little bit shorter with a little bit longer episodes might even worked out a little bit better. But nonetheless, this is now officially post WandaVision era of Marvel, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or whatever they're calling it at this point, because honestly, I don't know what they're calling it. I don't know what they are intending to identify this new era as. So we'll just stick with the term era. Peace, handle. Peace, freedom, peace, freedom. I'm looking for your podcast. I'm looking for your vlog as well. Freedom, who is listed or identified as Wolf Photography on Instagram. That's WOLPH Photography on IG. Check him out and harass him about doing his video game vlog where he digs into Fortnite, Apex, and a bunch of other cool games that people do. So yeah, be sure to harass him. Peace, Dwayne. How are you? Um, yeah. So as we step into this era post WandaVision, we had like there's so much opportunity. So I just want to make this comment on or touch on this thought that I've always had about comic books in general, and especially the Marvel movies and the way they get down. There is a misnomer about the fact that all this stuff that we're watching, the Umbrella Academy, The Boys, um, the CW, the DC movies, the Marvel Universe, the shows, that they're superhero movies, that it's just this genre called superhero. But the truth is that superhero is not a genre, it's a character profile. And technically, if you really want to get, if we can watch all of the Marvel movies and say that, oh, these are just superhero movies, then when you start really breaking it down, then we can go back to movies like Rambo, Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Die Hard, hell, the Lethal Weapon movies where you just like people are invincible and doing like some ridiculously amazing feats. Are those superhero movies? That's the question. Are we really identifying the characterization of a person doing impossible odds and winning as superhero, doing feats of like falling from great distances and getting up and running? Jackie Chan movies are superhero movies then, if that's the case. So I posit instead that while superheroes are in fact a character profile for the way in which a character operates within the sphere of a film, the film itself has a genre. And if you watch Marvel movies, then you understand that that genre ranges as vast as the entire catalog of film in and of itself. For example, it's a very clear and distinct difference between Captain America, the Winter Soldier, for example, and Iron Man, you know, where one is really tech noir and really almost for a lack of a better word, it's just technology driven and it's about a rich guy being an eccentric asshole. You know, Tom Cruise type stuff, really fun stuff, just what it is. And on the other hand, we have these Captain America movies that are very much in the veins of like Tom Clancy, and very, very espionage based. Very, I mean, honestly, if you watch Captain America Civil War and then you watch Jason Bourne, is there really a difference between those two movies? Like, we're talking about a super soldier and another super soldier doing some super soldier shit against some other super soldiers. And, in fact, Jason Bourne is literally the Winter Soldier. They're both Manchurian candidates. So it's really funny that we separate these stories and understand that we're really existing in a paradigm of a lot of different types of films. And you make a good point, Handel. Doctor Strange is not qualified as a superhero. And interesting enough, with that fact, let's go into the idea of Wanda Maximoff and WandaVision. That is not a superhero film. It's not about a person doing heroic things. It's not about a person doing super things. It's about magic. And if that's superhero, then Harry Potter is a fucking superhero. Lord of the Rings is about a superhero. All of these movies that contain magic and magical artifacts and people doing magical things, that doesn't fit as a superhero concept. So we can dabble in all that stuff. We could play with all of that. But the truth is that these are genre-based films that feature characters that fit the profile in many instances of a superhero. And in more instances, they're not superheroes at all. They're just people going through something in their life, which is more in the context of drama. And so you can have a action drama or an action thriller. An action thriller is where there's action and a lot of action, but at the same time, it's very much built around the experiences and the trials and tribulations of a particular character. So, we just have to really start opening up our palette of explanation and how we describe our passions, because we're allowing laymen to identify and to claim ownership of the narrative of what it is that we enjoy and what it is that we love. And the fact of the matter is that I'm not watching superhero films. I watch superhero films when they do exist, because I will admit that DC, while they do dabble in different genres, at the end of it, they're still superhero films, because it's all about a person doing these heroic things and whatever. But Aquaman as a movie did carry so many. Let's just be real. Aquaman was how do I say this without making it come off negative? Aquaman was everything but the kitchen sink as a film. Aquaman was very much one part Indiana Jones, one part like super sci-fi, another part just like crazy horror. Like, it had its moments for all of these different things, and they put everything they could into one movie, because Aquaman is a character that is questionable. He's not respected, and they found a way to create the character based on an actor and give him respect. And while I appreciate everything they did with that Aquaman, the bottom line is that at the end of the day, that actor should not have been Aquaman. And as great as he was, if DC had access to this man, why not make him Lobo? Why not? I mean, that's who he acts like. All the time, he looks like him. You put on a leather jacket and some some motorcycle boots, just dress him like a Harley rider, put him on a space motorcycle, and just throw some makeup on his face, and just have him show up and be himself, and he's Lobo. So it's like, whatever, with with the idea that these are all superhero movies. The guy was doing everything, like he was a drinker. Like, the dude was just wilding out. It was great. So yeah, no more superhero talk about, oh, these are superheroes. No, these are characters driven by superhero elements. But at the end of the day, they're regular stories, just like any other film genre. And they fit into these film genres very well, because, again, no one can deny that if you watch Mission Impossible, if you watch Jason Bourne, you're not going to say that it's not the same thing as Captain America, the Winter Soldier, at all, hands down. And you can't watch Doctor Strange and say, well, really, I'm watching something equivalent to a Lord of the Rings or a Harry Potter. You know, it's just a guy experimenting with magic and getting into that world of magic and then doing magic shit. You know, magic is not superhero. So yeah, moving on. This week was crazy, right? So we had this little flick, it's just a little unknown flick that came out in 2009. I don't think anybody really watched it or saw it, but for some reason, James Cameron managed to get it to number one. I don't think anybody had ever saw that movie before, and it still made it to like the number one movie of all time, highest grossing movie. It was called Avatar. And I think the people that saw that movie probably thought it was going to be the last Airbender Avatar. It was going to be Aang, but and I think because people thought it was Aang and everybody rushed to see this movie, and then they obviously paid to see the movie, so the movie became the number one grossing movie of all time. But the fact was that Endgame came out, and then in a shorter matter of time, beat the brakes off of it, and took the number one spot in 2019. And so we went through 2020 with with Avengers Endgame being the number one movie of all time, the number one grossing film of all time, at what 2,797,000,000, something and some change. Meanwhile, just this past weekend, or during this past weekend, um, James Cameron re-released this little unknown film that people thought was Avatar: The Last Airbender, and released it to China, and then China pushed it back to the number one grossing film of all time yet again. So James Cameron's mistaken Avatar: The Last Airbender film is now at 2,798,000,000, which is 1,000,000 and some change, or under 1,000,000 more than Avengers Endgame. Now, while I'm tripping, I'm really joking, because Avatar was obviously a movie that people loved and lauded over. There was even talk about when the movie came out that people were depressed because it ended. I won't get into that. But nonetheless, Avatar was a film that it earned its right. It earned its gross. And I do agree that while I personally didn't enjoy the way the film played out, I was really disappointed in the movie. Played out like a PG a kid friendly animation that Disney would have released. That's how I look at Avatar. The reason being is you got this beginning scene where you got this scarred soldier, hard ass looking soldier, and he's talking to the new recruits who have just came to Pandora to get a hold of the unobtainium. Worst name ever. And he's all like, "You see this scar? Yeah, I got this scar. First day I was on Pandora. The things here are gonna kill you. They're terrible. They're horrible." So he builds up this hype, and I'm like, "Oh shit, we're about to go into this and see this like crazy shit. We're about to see like these horrific beasts and terrible traps set by nature." And then, by the time we actually make it to Pandora, they were just big black panthers with extra legs and a rhinoceros that was glowing. And I was like, that's the threat. That was the big horror. That was it. Like, you got that scar. That was from that. Like, okay. So I kind of took my investment into the world out of the film, because you established this very extreme terror and threat, and it's gone. It was like poof, it turned into like kids play. So I at that point I still watched and enjoyed the film for what it was. Like, the tech was great, the mechs were great, like all these concepts that weren't original to Avatar. We know that James Cameron is a fan of mechs, like we saw in Aliens. He made sure that the alien queen was fought by Ripley inside of what would traditionally and ultimately be a mech. But the film itself was weak in its story and weak in its presentation. It looked cool, but what do you say? Don't judge a book by its cover. The cover or the wrappings of the film is all the 3D and the beautiful glowing colors and the blue people and et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of presentation, it was very formulaic, it was very predictable, and it was very underwhelming in terms of the outcome of it. It had cool elements in it, but it was not great. But again, I'm not here to take away its thunder. I even appreciate the class that Marvel had when they announced how happy they were that Avatar succeeded and became the #1 film of all time again. But nonetheless, Avatar was still, for me, lackluster. That's an example of James Cameron, in my opinion, utilizing his opportunity to produce a film to display his politics. And I'm all for James Cameron's politics 100%. I'm down for environmental realities, and dealing with the disparages of classism. These are all things that he touches on in his films. Sometimes overtly, as in Avatar, and sometimes subvertly in films like The Abyss. But at the end of the day, deforestation, which Avatar touched on, colonization, Avatar touched on, exploitation of resources, manipulation and corruption of corporations and governments, and the fact that they decided of their own hubris, America, that they could go to this place where these people already lived and take ownership of something that someone else like already claimed and lived and thrived in, and try to uproot them and everything about their lifestyle and culture just for the sake of the dollar. And even the concept of the term unobtainium, I'm sure that if ever given opportunity, if asked of James Cameron why he called it unobtainium, I'm sure he would have a logical and very interesting answer. But nobody's ever asked him that. Nobody, like at all, like why has nobody asked him that? I don't know. I mean, like that's like a really good question. Knowing James Cameron and his politics and how he views things, the fact that he chose not to insert, or people chose not to offer him the opportunity to expand on that meaning. Like, if you leave it for what it is, unobtainium is whack. Like, it's just a stupid name. And sometimes you need context, and you need to get that explanation. You said call him up. Yeah, I'm gonna ask him. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna try to find his contact information and specifically ask him, why, James, why? And then I might go ask him, why are we doing an Avatar 2? Um, it's been a long time. Like, it hasn't been coming to America long, but we're talking like 2009. So why are we even into, like, why do we need to follow up? What more is there that needs to be told in that story? So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting when you think about Avatar, but nonetheless, I'm happy that the healthy competition between Avatar and Endgame didn't end, because I think that honestly, this just lends an opportunity for Marvel to say, hey, maybe in a couple of years, we'll re-release it Endgame too, even though I honestly don't think that they will. And yeah, Maxi, 2, 3, and 4 for Avatar. Like, I don't even see a story. I don't see it. I mean, we're just gonna watch some hubristic people repeat their ignorance over and over again. Oh, well, we fucked up on Pandora. Let's go over here and do the same thing to those indigenous people. No, actually, that makes sense. That is how it works, right? My bad. Avatar 2, 3, and 4, bring it. Art imitating life, right? So, moving on, there is everybody knows who Kenneth Branagh is. He's a director, um, a decent director. He's done some decent materials. He's done some interesting materials. But Kenneth Branagh has now been announced that he is directing a Bee Gees biopic. The biopics that are about musicians tend to be pretty good, and they tend to surround interesting and dynamic concepts about the characters, these people that we don't know beyond being musicians. There's been some really good ones. However, maybe I'm missing the mark here, but I have never heard anything interesting surrounding the Bee Gees. that I would necessarily think a film about them would be needed. Um, yeah, that's all I can say on that. I don't really know, but feel free if anybody has a difference of opinion or can give me some insight into why the Bee Gees would be interesting to do a biopic about. I mean, I love their music, but I don't know anything about them that makes them biopic worthy. So you said after Jimmy failed with Tim Miller to revive Terminator, plus got an egg in face with Star Wars and Avengers, he needs something. Ah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. But he's been talking about this Avatar thing. So, from what I understand, there's two films that were kind of like the burning desire of James Cameron. It was Avatar, and he had the idea years prior to 2009. But that and his love for Battle Angel Alita, um, those were like his babies. And yeah, he hasn't had any luck with all that stuff. Avatar at this point is it. So I get that. True. And yeah, Kenneth Branagh did do Thor. Absolutely. He was the villain in Tenet, and yes, the voice in the beginning of Infinity War. You are absolutely correct. And all that's great, but it doesn't tell me why the Bee Gees need a biopic. I need to know that. So yeah, let me know. Also, in the news, since we mentioned earlier when we were talking about the Tom Clancy-esque genre of the espionage thriller, um, Amazon is doing a Tom Clancy film called Without Remorse, starring Michael B. Jordan. Michael B. Jordan is going to be playing John Clark, which is, if you don't know who John Clark is, you're not really into Tom Clancy. John Clark is basically Jack Ryan's CIA bestie. So in the novels, and I think in a couple of movies, John Clark was played by Willem Dafoe in some of those Harrison Ford flicks. But yeah, John Clark is Jack Ryan's CIA bestie. So he's the one that gets the shit done, really done, where and helps Jack Ryan through his struggle. You know, Jack Ryan was supposed to be the analyst turned action hero, and his support was always John Clark. So John Clark getting a film starring Michael B. Jordan is going to be pretty intense, and um, looks like it might be worthy of the whole title. So I'm looking forward to that. And another thing in the news this week, Jeff Bezos was requested to testify on income inequalities. And this was by Bernie Sanders. You know, so Bernie Sanders is always looking to up his game and help address the disparities in the world, our world, specifically of the United States. And you know, Jeff Bezos's response to his request was very Tony Stark. He was like, "Nah, I'm good. I don't need to address that, and I'm not engaging at it. You know, you want my money, you can't have it." That's Jeff Bezos's response. So while it sucks because there is obviously something that needs to be addressed in the concept of the richest man in the world, or one of the richest men in the world, not willing to pay his employees a worthy wage. But you know, we're not going to split hairs because once again, America. So there is also in talk, while we're talking about income inequalities, you know, the whole thing with the bill being passed that will allow us to get a second stimulus, and some people have received their stimulus checks already. I just want to acknowledge that if you get your stimulus, or when you get your stimulus, really think about not just spending that money. Really think about if you don't have a need, don't spend it. We don't really know what's coming, and we don't really know what's going to happen in the very near future. We can all be very optimistic, we can all be very hopeful, but here we are 1 year later, and we're not quite in a state that is familiar to, you know, the world as we know it. And so that in and of itself kind of bothers me. And that in and of itself puts me in a very uncomfortable position knowing that we are not absolutely sure that the world as we know it is going to improve or give us a quality of life that is in the embodiment of socialization and interaction with other humans as a norm. We're currently alienated from each other, you know, where things like this are how we get by. You know, we create vlogs and we do a lot of video work and we entertain each other virtually, which we're leaning towards Ready Player One, and I don't like that. Ready Player One is a good example. Wall-E was another example where you had people that got so into their devices. They would sit in a chair and they would stare at devices, and that was how they interacted to the point where they became so obese that they couldn't even move or do anything. And then they just became consumers. And in the consumption, with consumption comes waste. And then they just completely destroyed the planet with waste, and then they bounced. You know, all of these different concepts, while sci-fi and extreme, it's still science in that fiction. It's the science that makes it relatable. And the social commentary of these stories, like Avatar, are things that are very real. So when we look at things that are happening and we talk about, yeah, we're about to get this stimulus, they want to stimulate the economy. I suggest you stimulate your own economy. And what I mean by that is take the time to invest in yourself, find some way to monetize yourself outside of your job or your 9 to 5 or whatever it is you do on a daily basis. Push yourself into a paradigm that is different from what you're used to, so that you can and potentially be able to sustain yourselves. Because as we saw what happened in Texas, you're not absolutely able to guarantee that the our government will be there for us in a time of an emergency crisis. So, you know, things like a bug out bag, things like emergency rations, you know, this is not about any extremities of like doomsday talk. This is just about being prepared for simple things like that. Can you imagine if enough people were prepared for that crisis and therefore able to avert many of the things that occurred that we are very sorry happened because of lack of government response in a timely manner? You know, imagine if Katrina, the people had opportunities in advance to prepare just for any emergency. You know, just that idea of being prepared is important. And there are plenty of people on YouTube and social media that you can tune into to really dig into what and how what that looks like, how that plays out, right? So seek them out and just think about other ways to get it in and how we can manage ourselves, because the name of the game today, as we see, is autonomy. You know, we're watching the Jeff Bezoses and the Elon Musks and the Donald Trumps do what they want because at the end of the day, because of their wealth, they're above reproach in many instances. They are able to control their lives and do what they choose to do, how they choose to do it. So we need to really pay attention to that, because as these men are controlling their fate, some of them, Bill Gates, are controlling our fate by their decisions. So as much autonomy as we can start to develop, you know, and control over our own lives, our own livelihood, our own offense and defense in terms of protections, the better we would be towards a more amicable and prosperous future, and our quality of life intact, no matter what happens, right? So yeah, that's again, speaking of economic inequalities and the disparages of the world, my man Banksy, um, he has a video that he did where it's a mashup of him and Bob Ross, which is great. And if you don't know who Banksy is like the clandestine Snake Eyes type ninja unknown origin of the street art world. Like no one officially knows who Banksy is, but we all know who Banksy is, if you understand what I'm saying. His identity is unknown. No one's ever seen his face, but everybody's seen his artwork, and he remains anonymous in terms of his credibility and appreciation. But yeah, so I'll post that on my IG sometime today, as soon as I can find it. But it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool video. And speaking of the snake eyes of street art, there's been this meme going around on social media about Snake Eyes versus Batman. First of all, Snake Eyes versus Batman. Let's just think about this. Of course, everybody goes prep time, prep time. You know, that's like I hate prep time. I understand prep time, and ironically, I was just talking about prep time. But in terms of Batman, I hate prep time. The idea that this man can conjure up a solution to any plight, whether it's alien, android, or wizard, is beyond me. It makes no sense. This guy is a master of all things. Like, how is this even a possibility? Like, how is this happening? Like, what is it that makes this guy so great that everybody believes he can beat anyone? His plot armor is almost as bad as Goku's plot armor with his last word, last minute power up. Like, it's just like you know that Goku will never actually lose in the end. Even if he loses a battle, he doesn't win. He doesn't lose the war because he will find a power up. And Batman is the same way. Batman people will allow to lose, and the truth is, Snake Eyes would beat the brakes off of Batman. Snake Eyes is that dude. Snake Eyes would destroy Batman. An actual Snake Eyes, if you understand what Snake Eyes was, Batman don't want none of that. Not at all. He doesn't want any hint of it. So, nah, Batman can't take Snake Eyes. Not at all. Batman was in the League of Shadows, yes, but Snake Eyes been in wars with ninja clans for like most of his adult life, and actually from the moment he was found and let into this clan, he's been a beast. The man is a beast. Like if you watched GI Joe the animated series, you know, back in the day, or if you read the comics, there is nothing Batman has on Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes do everything Batman does, and he don't even need the rope. I'm just gonna say that. That's all I'm gonna say. He don't need a grappling hook. He don't use none of that shit, and he still does it. He gets it in. Snake Eyes is that man. So enough. I really want you Batman people to understand like Batman is not infallible. There like Batman is not infallible. And that's one thing I did appreciate about watching the Justice League that did come out was that scene where Batman knew Superman was coming and he still got backhanded like a little biatch. He was out. He was out of town. And yeah, he had the quote unquote prep time that allowed him to bring in Lois Lane. But there was no guarantee that that would have actually saved him. So that was one of those gambles. He was hoping that that would stop. But if he was completely out of it and Lois shows up, and then he kills Batman, then goes with Lois, like because that is possibly what he could have did. You know, it's just it's just a whole nother thing. Yeah, Batman has the Batman armor. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Have you ever heard of a ninja that's not able to assassinate its target? It's not a thing. And when they do a Batman versus Snake Eyes beatdown challenge, Snake Eyes is going to win. Snake Eyes is going to handle him. It's just hands down. There's no question. It's impossible. So speaking of this interesting conversation about Zack Snyder and Batman and the Justice League, there's this conversation about the fact that Zack Snyder, his Justice League coming up isn't going to be canon, but then they said that Joss Whedon's version of the Justice League is going to be canon, even though they took all of that and said that none of that counts. So there's this weird dialogue that's going on with Warner Brothers, which I think is they're really trying to downplay Zack Snyder's Justice League because they don't want to invest and continue the story. But like the accidental leak of the Justice League on Tom and Jerry, like how do you make that mistake? How do you make the mistake of having me turn on Tom and Jerry and it shows Batman and the Justice League? Like it just doesn't. I don't get it. Like they're really trying to sabotage the plan. And if that's what it is, then that's what it is. But at the same time, if the fans speak, I mean, you went this far and you decided to allow him to do what he's doing with this reboot or this remake or this retelling his master magnum opus or whatever, then you might as well, you listen to the fans at that point. If it's good, then you're probably going to continue it. So, cut the horse shit, cut the games, and yeah, I don't know what to make of that. I really don't. I don't understand why they're like that. I don't understand what they intend to do. But I mean, they need to stop playing games with our emotions. If you're gonna end it, just end it and say so. If you're not gonna end it, say so. Just stop BSing us. It looks like I lost IG Live for a while, but I'm back. Um, so Seymour, Snake Eyes can't beat Shipwreck. Shipwreck was his homie. He would never have to beat Shipwreck, but if he wanted to, he absolutely could. But also, if you know the lore, Snake Eyes trained most of the GI Joes anyway. So there's that. So moving on. Um, we're in this post WandaVision era of Marvel, and so we're building up from this realm of magic and this interesting world of unexplainable phenomena and chaos theory, and we're moving into this world, goes back into the Tom Clancy espionage spy shit with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And so now, when you think about that, the question then has to be asked, like, what is it going to be like for people who have there are a lot of people who are still buying into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they decided in that context to pay attention to this world of magic and this world of where they get into chaos theories and everything like that. And now we're about to jump into something that's going to be a totally different genre. Again, we talked about the idea of the genre and how that works. So we've got this new movie that's going to be in the genre of espionage and spy thriller with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, building off of the momentum of this other movie that was very much Harry Potter, magic and WandaVision. So I think that we're about to experience a very serious transition, and there are a lot of people that might not get it. But I will say that the current way that they're promoting Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it's brilliant. The idea that we're basically about to watch a buddy buddy system take place, where you've got the good cop bad cop type of play on things. It reminds me very much of Lethal Weapon. I'm just gonna wait one time. If Bucky does not say I'm getting too old for this shit at least once, that's a missed opportunity, and the writers need to be fired. If you're gonna do that and you're gonna present these characters in that way, and you got the grumpy old man with the blossoming new guy that's gonna take the reins and become the next big thing as Cap, then give him all those general tropes and let him act the fool. Let him be the grumpy old man. Let him say once, I'm getting too old for this shit, because he is. He's the 100-year-old man. As he said, a semi-stable 100-year-old man. So I'm looking forward to that. And their bantering back and forth in the trailers are just like they're hilarious. It's just nonstop laughing and joking all the time. And I appreciate that they're doing that, and that they're going to allow us to really get to enjoy these characters for what they are. Because what started in Civil War, where they met, and that scene where they're in the Beetle, and he's in the Winter Soldier's in the back seat, and he's all squished and uncomfortable. He's asking Sam to move his seat up, and then Sam's like, no. And it's like from there you saw what was beginning to be what we're going to experience in this series. Then you go a little further and see them when they're fighting against Spider-Man. They're learning to interact and work together and fight together. So they're building their rapport. And then they have that moment where Sam, gets Spider-Man out of the way, and then Bucky asks him, you couldn't do that earlier? And then he's like, I hate you. It's like they're just building on all of that we've seen so far. So then you got that moment where in the trailers where they're talking, and he's like, we got to be careful about it could be one of the big three. And then, Bucky's like, what are the big three? And he's like, androids, aliens, or wizards. You know, and what's interesting about that is ultimately, if you think about it, Winter Soldier is completely out of the loop of a lot of the things that were going on. He was still under programming technically all the way up until the Civil War movie. And with that being said, he doesn't really know the experiences that the Avengers were going through. He could read about it, but Bucky doesn't look like the guy that reads. So I don't think that he would ever read the follow up on any of those events that occurred. And if they talked about it, I don't think that Bucky would even technically understand most of the things that they were describing. Bucky is not he's not one of those guys. So he's the dumb jock. That's how he's always played himself in terms of how he presents himself. So while Sam is explaining the reality, the fact is that technically the first Avengers movie was absolutely about a wizard alien, an alien wizard. That was Loki, right? So you got this, and Bucky would know about those things, being that he was very much a fan of Captain the whole nine. Then second time around, you've got this android, in the form of Ultron. Again, Bucky was still under the brain freeze, so he was not privy to those things. So the alien thing would be the only thing that Bucky is actually familiar with, and as he described, he doesn't associate when he says wizard. He's like, well, Doctor Strange is a sorcerer, not a wizard, and Vision had to come in and remind him what is a sorcerer if not a wizard, persevering. So no hat means wizard, and or rather sorcerer without a hat means wizard, because according to Sam, wizards always wear hats. We'll follow his logic and we'll see where that leads us. But at the end of the day, we're looking at the next transition that's going to open up a whole nother arena of the Marvel Cinematic Universe to us. And they've exposed that there are some strange things occurring in this story. They could be super soldiers. They could be a lot of different things. So we'll see how this series plays out. And of course, I will be participating in the commentary on each episode every Sunday, like I did with WandaVision, because I love this shit and this is what I do. So the main reason why I, in this break between these two films, the main reason why I wanted to, or what I really wanted to do today, was to kind of dig into some things about WandaVision that I thought weren't done very well. And a recurring thing, something that I find is not done very well in any film. So that kind of ties into the whole idea of what Sam talked about in terms of the big three: the androids, aliens, or wizards. So the android trope from Ultron, and then we get it revisited in Vision. The Vision angle of WandaVision was really well done. The Vision himself, the way he in the last episode, the way he fought himself, and the way throughout that whole moment, he was trying to figure out a way to not have to fight himself. And he ends up talking and having a philosophical moment where these two intellectuals are debating a concept or an abstraction. And that was how they resolved their issues. If you're talking about AI, you're really digging into the concept of AI, and this AI, who's a new consciousness coming into learning of its own reality and its own existence, of which the Vision is very much still new in that arena. He's still discovering a lot of the aspects of consciousness and what it means to be a living being or a sentient being. Boom. Perfect. I loved everything about that. But on the other hand, when we talk about, we'll just say magic in place of wizards, the magic in WandaVision on one side was great. On the other side, it was shit. And the part that shit is, I hate, and I say this with emphasis because I don't like to use the word hate, but I hate how every modern movie about magicians resorts to magicians fighting to just be them going pew, 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 shooting shit at each other. I hate that. It's the most ridiculous, the most annoying thing. That ruined the Harry Potter series for me. I despise Harry Potter wizard battles because you got these kids training to be wizards in these classes, learning all of these different things. They're learning about potions. They're learning about herbs. They're learning about different spell casting. They're learning about different like creatures and how to neutralize all these different variables. And then whenever they fight, they just take their wand and go pew 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 pew. I'm shooting you. I hate that. It's this weak. It's disturbingly weak. It's whack. It's horrible. So there hasn't been too many films that have been able to demonstrate a battle between magicians better than two films. Because I hate, besides hating the battles between wizards and Harry Potter, I despise the general. Well, no, I take that back. In Lord of the Rings, Gandalf the Grey against Saruman was a good battle. And whenever Gandalf used his power, I appreciate how he used it. There wasn't a lot of pew pew pew. It was a lot of spell casting. It was a lot of speeches, a lot of dialogue, and it was a lot of posturing and positions. That was great demonstration of magical use in terms of if you understand how magic is. Yeah, Chris, I'm on point. So, but if you really want to get into that concept, the fact is that Lord of the Rings and that battle between Saruman and Gandalf the Grey was absolutely a lesser quality rehash and dare I say it ripoff of battle between Queen Bavmorda and what's her name in Hobbit. I mean, sorry, the Willow. If you go back to that Willow flick and you watch that end scene between them two sorceresses, they was going at it. That was a great wizard battle. That was a great battle of people using magic against each other, and they weren't just going pew pew pew. They were doing spells. They were shooting shit. They were going hand to hand. They was going. That was the best version of battle throughout the entire film history of magicians going at it. To me personally, that particular scene. I do love the magic as it was used in Dragon Slayer as well. Those scenes were great too, and they weren't a bunch of pew pew pew, just shooting shit out of wands or shooting shit out of their hands at each other. Doctor Strange versus Thanos, or Doctor Strange versus Caecilius. Any of those scenes where Doctor Strange does his thing, those scenes with him doing magic and fighting other magicians, like he's battling magicians and they're turning the reality around on him. They're forcing him to have to adapt to all these different things that they're affecting. Magic is about influence and bringing it and using power to change things. And it's just that's what I want to see. So yeah, the Voldemort and Dumbledore battle was decent, but it still didn't they didn't go hard enough. And then again, if you're gonna go there, then backtrack again to pew pew pew. I'm done with you. I can't relate. So the top of the totem pole in terms of wizard battles, the Doctor Strange battles, Doctor Strange and throughout his series, but the Thanos battle where they're pushing different elements at each other. They're using hand gestures and they're blah. They're doing stuff. He's doing the jutsu of Naruto and having duplicates of himself all around. Like that's use of magic in the real sense. That's proper use of magic. That's entertaining. It's wow factor. If your magic use, if your magic can be replaced by a gun, I ain't for it. It's weak. It's terrible. And so in WandaVision, a lot of what we saw between her and Agatha was pew pew pew. They were just hurling fireballs at each other, hurling magic balls, excuse me, and they would knock each other down. They would knock each other back. They would throw it at each other. And I'm like, again, all of the things that we know you can do. And there was that one time where she resorted back to her creepy self and then did the magic thing to her head. That was cool. But everything else was they just kept shooting that shit at each other. There was no hexing. There was no anything. So I'm definitely annoyed by that in WandaVision, and I think that there was a lot of missed opportunities because once you introduce the hex into Wanda's universe, into the world of magic for Marvel, And so you've established that when they manifest their powers as magicians, these hexes appear. Let's talk about it. So you've got this thing that takes place in the past with Agatha Harkness and her coven, and they're saying that she's evil and she must be dealt with. So then all they do is they just start shooting shit at her. Can anybody tell me what was actually happening in that scene? What were they doing? What were they doing? Like, what is really happening? What is really the game plan? What is their intention? Like, I don't know why they were just standing around her shooting magic at her. Like, again, just shooting magic. Why didn't that, like, I was writing it, that moment would have been presented by me establishing that these witches were doing a hex, and this hex was going to manifest as a hex barrier that was going to encase her in a crystalline like chamber that would restrict her, kind of like putting her frozen in carbonite. Like you can utilize magical properties to establish something. Yeah, I mean, I get that they were firing off. Like, the fact is that I don't want to see magic as something shooting. I'm tired of that. It's boring. It's like okay, you're shooting, but no one knows what they were doing or why they were doing it. She was just shooting power, and they were all just shooting power at her, and she's just like laying there, like but what was the end goal? Like, I don't know what they're doing, and they didn't actually explain it. But again, you're dealing with this thing of hexes, and you're trying to establish this trope of a hex as a part of the Marvel canon. Then use fucking hexes. Give me hexes. And I'm not talking about it has to look the same, but we didn't see anything. We just saw them shooting shit out their hands. Boring. If you're a witch, give me something. Like, give me something interesting. You want to know who always like has cool magic? Constantine. Constantine is an example that I didn't mention of a sorcerer or a wizard or a spellcaster or whatever the hell he is, because he doesn't identify with any of it and he doesn't like labels. But Constantine, when he does his thing, there's always something happening. He has to speak something. He has to do hand gestures. He has to have external elements that exemplify his powers. He has to go in. He has to really do things. And in most of the DC animated series, because really we didn't get enough of his television series, which I enjoyed. I thought it was great. But even in that, when he did his magic or when he demonstrated, he always had to utilize a magical talisman. He had to utilize some form of jutsu. You know, he had to get into the gang signs of the magic, and or he had to speak. And to me, that's where magic matters. If all you're gonna do is shoot, I'm bored. I don't want to see you shoot, and I just don't know. So he got to fight. He got to light a Newport short. Yeah, he'll get it in on that too, because he'll be like, pasabara, and he'll light it on fire. Yeah, the Constantine movie with Keanu Reeves, which they say that they're doing an actual sequel of. Um, okay, I'm not necessarily happy with the fact that Keanu Reeves is returning to Constantine, because Keanu Reeves was not Constantine to me as much as I love that film. But that Constantine movie was really good. And again, there's moments in that where the use of magic and the use of power is demonstrated and done well, done greatly. So you've got this scene where, he's like, Chaz had just got murdered by something, an unknown invisible entity. So, and if you understand how in that realm, how angels and demons and other beings work, if they don't want to be seen, they don't have to be seen. They can remain in the overlay of reality in the alternate realm. So Constantine had that moment where he utilizing the tattoos, the sigils that he has embranded on himself, the tattoos of these magic sigils, or these keys of Solomon. He into like commanded. He's trying to. He's. You can see he's utilizing this pressure, and then the darkness is fighting against it. So he fails once, and then he does it again. Into the light I command thee. That's gangster. That's proper use. And you're right. The power of words is actual magic, because it spells, and you're spelling out your will. You're giving form through word sound power to manifest your will to bring about or influence change, manipulate reality to your will. Um, Good magic, when done right, is beautiful to see. Magic when it's just pew pew pew, whether it's through a wand or through your bare hands, it's a lazy approach, and it requires no effort upon the writers to really dive into any research on the concepts of magic. And I think that we need to really have, make like really express how we feel about things like that, because we can't allow Wanda to be someone who can just pew 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 when the shit hits the fan. We already got Captain Marvel, as one of my guys says, just shooting glitter at people. It doesn't even damage you. She shoots at people and they just knock on the ground. She hasn't murked anybody or severely damaged anybody with her pew pew pew. And that's also disturbing to me. I don't like how Captain Marvel blows and will destroy a whole damn ship, but when it comes to hitting someone or using that same power against a person, nothing happens. So yeah, the pew 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 gotta go. Marvel needs to get rid of the pew 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 across the entire board. It's not going to work anymore, and it's a really lame, and it's sad. So all right, yeah, you guys mentioned Supernatural. Supernatural, the series, when it delves into magic, that's great, because again, they're not just pew pew pewing. They have to cast spells. These spells are binding spells. These spells create barriers. These are not visible barriers, which is what makes it great. These spells deal with unseen elements, unseen forces, because most of the forces in nature are like air. We don't see that. We can't see gravity. And if we understand that magic is the manipulation of nature, then when we talk about these forces being manifest, you're not going to see it. You're just going to see the person utilizing whatever resources he has to take control of these resources and these faculties of nature, but it shouldn't be visible all the time. The resort to visibility is just, again, it's a dumbing down of the premise to make it similar. Ultimately, to me, the pew 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 is equivalent to why Batman has a cape or why Superman has a cape. The only reason that those characters have capes is because in comic form, when a person was flying, there was not enough visible exposition to demonstrate that they were flying. It just looks like they're just in the air. So they decided to create these flowing capes as devices or as technology for the reader to see, oh, there's air current flowing through them that's moving the cape in their wake. So yeah, it's the magic needs to step up, and as a writer doing the research, just throwing out there the mention of chaos magic is not enough. You mentioned chaos magic, but there was no research done into what chaos magic actually is and how chaos magic is used. So you say that she's doing chaos magic, but she's doing the same shit that Agatha's doing. What is that? Okay, you're this is chaos magic, Wanda. You're the Scarlet Witch, but you're doing the same shit. The only thing that Wanda actually did differently was that she was manifesting reality, directly from her. That's not a reflection of chaos, though. Even the word chaos and what it means doesn't associate with that. Like chaos magic has a whole deeper philosophy and history that would make it interesting. It may be a canceled show, but Salem was intense magic. So I did not see Salem, so I don't know. But if it's a worthy watch, I might add it to the list and see what it is. So yeah, the weakness of WandaVision for me is how magic is manifested in general throughout the show. And the fact, and what I do appreciate is that over the course of the series, Agatha has demonstrated different levels of magical use, controlling a person with a magic talisman, the magic beads around the guy's neck, or the idea that she was able to explain how she does her different magic things. That was pretty good. But again, when it came down to fight, where did all that go? Nowhere. She didn't do any of that. What's the point of explaining all these cool factors if it's for story progression, but when it comes time to fight, they're just pew pew pewing. So that needs to be addressed in the future. And I'm wagering based on that end credit scene that Wanda's magic is going to resemble more of how Doctor Strange and the Sorcerer Supreme and others use their magic in his reality, from his perspective, because you can't put her in that movie and surround her with all these cool variables of how people get down, and then all she's doing is pew 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 and just hurling magical balls at people. And it's just boring and that's weak. So I wager that based on that last credit scene, you're going to see a lot more symbols in the air and a lot more hexes manifesting and a lot more actual things occurring other than just the same old from her. So we shall see. So this begs the Pietro question. How did Mr. Boner have Quicksilver's powers and meta memories? You know, once again, if we're talking about the writing, that was another ball drop. You don't have any explanation for how not only did he have memories of somebody, but how did he have memories of things that weren't the memories of this version of Quicksilver. So a lot of that was they just threw that in for fun, but they didn't really write it out very well. We can, knowing that we're dealing with witches and magic, she said that she did go and look for the real Pietro's body. That's how she knew its state and where it was. That obviously is a reflection that she probably was able to do some form of soul binding spell where the soul of the real Pietro was bonded to the body of Mr. Boner. And so Mr. Boner was embodying the soul of the real Pietro, and that's where the powers were manifest. But if that's how I would fucking write it. How did they write it? They didn't. They didn't even bother. They didn't even care. Because even in that regard, there's no explanation of how he had the powers, because how would Agatha know what his powers looked like? Like Agatha wasn't there. So maybe there was somebody who had video footage, but that still doesn't explain that she understood what was actually occurring. So there's a lot of moments that were left for the sake of entertainment in the middle of this strong storytelling, because they tried to keep all the focus on the other characters. But my perspective of writing is that if you're going to bring a character into it, then you got to bring the character into it. And that means they have to have clear explanations or clear concepts of what happened. I need to know, how did this guy have Quicksilver's powers? How did this guy have Quicksilver's memories? You didn't explain that. You didn't take that moment and do the obligatory, I can do this power and I can do this power, but she didn't do that. So we don't really know what the hell those beads did other than control his mind, and the rest is just left for us to figure out. So I think that was another weak point in the overall story. Other weak points in the WandaVision series that may or may not need to be addressed. So there's this moment where they started to build this tension up through the episodes. The first episode had an excellent moment of establishing this tension with the guy choking, Mr. Love, the boss. And then, you had the second episode with the tension from Dottie. And then you're slowly building up this tension. And then I felt that the tension was released too soon and too quickly by the humor and the overt jokiness of some of the further episodes down the line. And I think that they lost the momentum and the flow of the series halfway through the 9 episodes, because they started to build up that tension and give us this tension, and then they released the tension. And then the tension had to return in the later episodes to help close out the show, which I think was overarching. As I went back and watched straight through, it was a fail. It was a fail from a writing perspective, because of the fact that once you start the tension, you can't let it go. You can't dissipate it and then try to take it back and bring it back in. Once the tension starts, it has to keep escalating to get to that point, which is the climax. where the tension culminates in whatever big moment is going to take place. They started the tension too soon and then released it too soon and then tried to get it back as if we never lost the tension, lost that angst. And so you have that kind of takes away from some of the context of the story and some of the play out of how some of the characters were presented. I think that while great, hold on, maybe Agatha presented Pietro and Wanda's desire to have him there filled in the rest. Perhaps that's very true. Again, if we have to dig that deep into that character to figure that out, and they didn't, there's no hint of how they might have accomplished that, and no one even asked that question in the story. Like that could have easily been the question that Monica asked. Like once she realized that that's Mr. Boner, one of the things that she should have been asking, which would add mystery to the plot point of the greater tension, is if Agatha can do things like that, what else can they do? You know, like how does this play out in future stories? The fact that we now know that a person can be faked, their powers and all, by magic. Like that's something that could have, again, if I was writing this, that would have been a major contribution to the overarching story of this magic exploration, so that we can know that this can be built upon at a later date, because they left it very loose and very insignificant, and they didn't tie it up neatly. They just tied it up to say, okay, we're done with this character. It was Mr. Boner. You know, to be honest, that moment played out like Scooby-Doo when he pulls off the mask on the ghost. Mr. Boner. I would have got away with it too. You know, it's like, no, it was weak. So there's a lot of moments that are weak throughout the story, and when you really honestly look at it, it could have been written in those moments a lot better. And I don't know if it was a matter of they were so deep into what they were doing, and you know, as a writer, you can get lost in a moment that you're writing a particular development. So they might have got lost in the way they were going with certain elements and then forgot about other key elements, or got exhausted with trying to figure it out. Then they came back to it and worked it out later. But that means that there's an entire space in the series where the tension is not there and the tension is not built upon anything specific. And you kept they and then of course the whole thing of them trying to deliberately spin us and constantly send us off with like the Mr. Boner. When they introduced Quicksilver, that was a send off. They deliberately would insert little things to make us think or make people hint at, you know, Mephisto. Like they enjoyed poking at us. They enjoyed teasing us, and they enjoyed watching us squirm with anticipation for these opportunities. You know, and again, it's one of those things where you don't why even bother talking with this, repeating the mention of this engineer if you're not going to introduce the engineer with it, and it's not going to matter to the story. If the engineer doesn't matter, you don't really need to mention him more than once, twice, three times a lady. So I was really disappointed in how they played with the that engineer element. It was unnecessary as from a storytelling perspective, because honestly, did you need to know that an engineer designed the goddamn ship, the rover? Obviously, a fucking engineer designed it. That's what engineers do. So if that showed up and she was like, "Yeah, I made a call and somebody brought this to me," it would, you know, everybody would have been like, "Yeah, it was designed by an engineer at some point." We know it wasn't designed within a few days, so that was also weird. What the fuck does it matter if you call an engineer when that was the rover from Mars that already existed? It's like, so you didn't actually, they didn't design anything to your specs, because it was a rover that was designed to go to another planet that was in pre-existence. So it was a lie, it was poor writing, and it was a fail. So continuing, we just keep finding these moments where they did not put in the effort, and they were just trying to play with us and didn't realize that by fucking with us, you're fucking with the story that you're telling. And it kind of, in retroactive, going back and looking at it, these moments are like, why did you even say this? It just, there was no need to even mention it. So I was like, boo to that. And it's not because I really wanted the engineer to be necessarily Reed Richards or Blue Marvel or anybody that people speculated about. It's just the fact that you don't build anticipation for a character in your story if the character has no value. You don't bring up that shit. You just don't. It's poor development. So there's another thing that I also did not appreciate in WandaVision from a writing perspective, and also just the storytelling. I did not like the scene with Agatha being the narrator through Wanda's memories, trying to help her discover why she had these abilities and how she did what she did. I think that that was unnecessary to have Agatha be the catalyst for that. I think that if this was really going to play out the way it had been playing up to this point, that would not have been the point where Agatha revealed herself. I don't think that that would have happened. I think that instead, Agatha would have continued her charade and she would have tried to utilize or manipulate someone else to have that conversation with Wanda. She didn't really try any other approaches in terms of getting her to unlock her memories. Like honestly, the Vision with the way he expounds upon ideals and philosophies, the Vision should have been the one to dig into that questioning that would have forced Wanda to have these moments of experience and memories. And then after that, that would have been the moment, as I wrote it, that Agatha would have revealed herself. Like, haha, so that's what it is. Okay, I need you. Let's go. At that point, Agatha would step up. Um, but yeah, that was a weird moment in that whole joint. That was a weird moment. So I have to thumbs down those points and everything that's going on and put them in proper perspective. What's up? What's up, GQ?
What's up, bro? How you
Was
doing?
excellent. How you feel, G?
Man, I've been cool, man. I was like, let me hit you up, man. I haven't seen you in a while, man. You know what I'm saying? I know we used to hang out a lot and watch a lot of Japanese animation and martial arts and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, man. How you been, man?
Man, everything's good, G. Everything's good. So I'm sitting here going through that WandaVision and talking about some of the weaknesses in like the story.
Yeah.
What did you think about that series?
You know what? I haven't even seen it yet, but no, I haven't watched it yet, bro. I'm gonna be honest with you. No, I haven't watched it, but I've been hearing a lot of good things about it.
Uh-huh.
And unfortunately, I don't even have it's on what, Disney Plus,
Yeah,
right?
it's on Disney Plus.
No, you know what? Hold up. I do have. No, I don't. I don't have Disney Plus.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have Disney Plus, but I heard good things about it though.
Yeah, it's worth a watch. What you been watching then? What you been watching?
Um, by me being an
Yeah.
old school, I still be going back to the old school classics. But as far as the new school stuff, Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
Demon Slayer.
Demon Slayer's tight.
I've been watching Demon Slayer. I've been watching, of course, Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah, that's a repeat.
Trigon.
How you went back to Trigon? Love and peace.
Bro, look here. I even got the action. I got all the action figures for Trigon.
Oh, word?
Yeah, I got Basher Stampede. I got a couple of stuff from Trigon. I got that. I've been watching Full Metal Alchemist.
Word. Full Metal Alchemist is really good with the magic, the way they do alchemy in that story too. That's another example of some good use of magic.
Hey, well, you ever seen Macros Plus?
Yeah, absolutely. Classic.
Mad Bull.
I haven't seen that one. Mad Bull?
Yeah, raw.
Okay.
Mad Bull.
Devilman Crybaby? Oh, that was nasty. Yeah, I love that one.
I got the action figure for those too.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh man, you have to come on and show us some of these action figures one time.
Hey, your number's still the same, right?
Yeah, hit me.
Hold on. I'm gonna text you.
Cool. Definitely do that.
Yeah, because I got a list of stuff I want you to check out, man. Oh, another one. Lupin.
Oh yeah, Lupin.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the live action was crazy, right?
Yeah, but have you seen the CGI one?
No. I've seen the old one.
Ooh,
Wait, so was it called Lupin the Third, or what was it called for the CGI?
Lupin the First.
Lupin the First. I didn't see that one.
It's like a CGI. It's like a CGI. Kind of like, you know what it kind of reminds me of?
What?
Remember Final Fantasy, Advent Children?
Oh, it's like that.
It's on that level.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, highly recommended.
Like the Appleseed CGI and all that.
Yeah, it's on that level. Somebody said the new Lupin the Third CGI movie is fire. Yep.
Yep.
It is.
And Handle over there saying Devilman Crybaby was terrible. Like, are you serious, bro? No.
That's a dope, man.
Like, how you ain't like that?
Have you seen Batman, Soul of the Dragon?
No, I didn't watch that yet. I need to watch it. It was good?
Michael Jai White, Mark Dacascos, Kelly Hugh, they doing the voiceovers. The fight scenes on there.
Ah.
Ridiculous, bro. Have you seen Deathstroke?
Which one?
Knights and Dragons.
No, I did not see that one. I do know about that one. I have not watched it yet.
Highly recommended as well too, bro.
Damn. I got to catch up on that one.
I'm gonna text you a list, man. Justice League, Dark Apocalypse.
Oh, I love that one. Yes, that was that. Oh yeah.
That was cool. Just the other man from Candyman. What's his name?
Yeah.
Tony Todd.
Mm-hmm.
His voice on there, man. I was like, okay, enough said, man.
Yeah.
Have you seen Mortal Kombat Legends?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That was great. That was really great. That was great. What you think about this new Mortal Kombat they doing? You ain't feeling it?
I'm not really impressed, man. It's alright, man. It's alright. I'm not that impressed with it though.
Nah. Yeah. What is it about it that you don't like?
I know whoever did the actual choreography for that, they did a horrible job, man. They need somebody. If they would have had somebody like a, say for example, a Yun Woo Bang.
Yeah.
Or Corey Yun or Ching Sui Tang or somebody to do the actual choreography, it would have came out dope, man. If they would have got Yun Woo Bang, it would have been awesome, man. Because you know Yun Woo Bang is like,
that's the legend right there.
he's the god, man. You know what I'm saying? And I'm kind of looking forward to see what he's gonna do with Matrix 4.
Yeah, because he got to open that. He got to open the floodgates on that.
Yeah, I heard he's doing the actual choreography on that as well too. So I'm kind of looking forward to that.
Yeah. That's deep. Did you hear about them doing a remake of The Raid?
The Raid Redemption?
Yeah, they're doing a US version starring Frank Grillo. Yep, I just found that out yesterday. So the movie that's out right now, Boss Level?
Yeah.
The guy that directed that is doing The Raid, the American version of The Raid, with Frank Grillo. So I'm like, and the worst part about it is, they already kind of bit The Raid with that Judge Dredd movie that came out.
Yeah.
Because that was the same thing. He go inside the building, get locked in there, and then he got to fight his way through.
You know, they need to leave these movies alone, man, and stop doing remakes, man. Because it's the same thing like with that movie, The Departed.
Yeah.
Man. I'm like, ooh. Have you seen the original movie for that?
That was that with
Right, K-Max. I totally agree with K-Max, man. Leave the Raid alone, man. The US version.
Yeah, they gonna do it. You know they gonna do it anyway because that's what they do. Look at the horrible remake that they did of Old Boy. That was the worst. I was like, there's nothing related to the original. There's no soul in this movie.
I like the Korean version better of that.
Absolutely. The whole trilogy, the whole Revenge trilogy was good. The whole thing.
But Frank Grillo, I'm trying to picture who that is.
Frank.
Is that the dude he played in
Crossbones from like the Captain America movies.
Yeah, he was one of the damn, what he was like. He wasn't one. Yeah, he was one of the bad guys.
Yep.
He was one of Hydra.
He was the Hydra agent. Yeah, he was the one that was on the elevator and all that.
Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah. So I don't get it because again, so you're gonna do this movie that's a remake of that, and but this guy's not even like a martial arts guy.
No, he's not.
So it's like, what are you trying to accomplish? Like, what's the point of remaking something that is highly based on martial skills and throw a guy in it that don't do martial like that? So you're just gonna have somebody learn some choreographed moves and run through a set,
Right.
and it's weak.
Let me ask you a question, man.
Yeah.
Because they were talking about, I heard some rumors about they were doing a remake on it. You remember that movie, Maniac Cop?
Yeah, absolutely. Wait a minute, they doing a remake of that? Now, if they stay true to the hard R, it'd be good. It could be, but
Who you think should play that role?
that's out now. That's a tough one. It's got to be somebody that has that scary intensity, but at the same time, it's not weak. You know what I'm saying? Like it's got to be somebody that's hard.
You know, the person I had in mind
Who?
was Dave Bautista.
Oh, damn.
Dave Bautista, because remember, dude from Maniac Cop was,
Yeah, he was a brolic dude.
yeah, he was old as hell too. So.
And I forget about Dave because like he's one of the big dudes that acts and can actually act. So we don't have to have a rock everywhere no more. You know what I'm saying?
His role in Blade Runner, the latest.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
His role in that movie was dope as hell, man. I was like, nothing against The Rock, but I kind of like Batista better.
Yeah.
As acting and stuff like that.
Yeah, he can act a little. He has a little more. Like he can get into the characters a lot more. Like he's not just bringing himself into the character. The Rock is always the Rock with a twist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Man, but apart from that though, it's like a lot of the movies that's out now, man. They've been cool, man, but it hasn't really been catching my interest. So.
Yeah.
Like I said, I go back to the old school stuff, man. You know what I'm saying?
And enjoy them goodies.
I have been hearing a lot of good things about WandaVision, and I saw that trailer for that Falcon.
The Winter Soldier.
Yeah, that boy look raw as hell. Yeah, K-Max, you're right, bro. It was short as hell, man. I wish Batista role was a little bit longer.
Yeah, like it was more involved.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But is it based off a comic book, that WandaVision?
So it's kind of based on because it's a part of the Marvel universe. So they kind of playing on the House of M a little bit. Like they're dabbling in the House of M, like casually, like borrowing from it, but still their own shit.
Excuse me, bro.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I love that brother, man. That's my dude, man.
He said you
but yeah, what else you been checking out as far as on the Marvel side, or just anything in general? You know what I'm saying?
So I had I was reading High Rise Invasion manga, and I just found out that on Netflix they have an anime of it. I haven't watched it yet, but I heard that it's some people really like it, but I've been reading the manga and I've heard that if I read that, it's not going to have the same impact on me.
Right.
So but it's supposed to be pretty good in terms of like the overall story. Have you ever heard anything about that?
No.
So you remember Gantz, right?
Of course.
So High Rise Invasion is
that was one of my favorite animations too.
Yeah, that's classic. But take the concept of that where like these people find themselves suddenly in like this tournament and they on the top of these skyscrapers and they can't go to the ground. And so the only thing they can do is go across these bridges from skyscraper to skyscraper and maybe dabble in some of the floors in the skyscrapers. And they're trying to figure out what they're doing and how to get out of it. Then these people start showing up with these happy face masks on, and they are starting to try to kill them. So they're trying to get away from these people, and these people are like badasses. And so it's basically the story of what this one particular character goes through trying to survive these like motherfucking assassins with happy face masks on. Some of them are serial killer, like with butcher blades. Some of them got guns. Some of them come with their bare hands and just like just rip you apart. and these people are trying to get away. And of course, the trick is you on a high rise on the roof of these skyscrapers, so you could fall off the edge. Or if you end up trapped, they gonna tear you apart. So it's definitely something that I've been reading and I want to watch, but I haven't watched it yet.
Have you watched any of the well, not watched, but read any of the mangas for Berserk?
I remember reading some of those way back, but I didn't get real far in that one.
Have you seen any of the
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Man, bruh, the last one where I think the last episode I stopped was when Guts was wearing the what do you call that stuff that like it make him powerful berserker armor or some shit like
Yeah,
that.
the basically extremists. Yeah,
Yeah, he was wearing the berserker armor and he was just like
raging.
Man, on some beast mode stuff, and they it's like the berserker armor took like control of him to the point it was this witch that actually like she's the only one that could like calm him down and bring him stuff like that. Yeah, wait, hold up a second. Like Berserk manga didn't really keep my attention. The Berserk manga is actually dope though.
Yeah, you got to get in. You got to give it a chance to go through it.
Yeah. See, usually I read up on mangas first before I watch the actual animation because there's a lot of stuff that's in the manga
that never makes it.
Yeah, they don't show it on the animation. You know what I'm saying?
Right.